This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The champ is
the one that everybody wants, me.
It's going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
Welcome to the WWE Podcast, everybody. It is Sunday, April 16th, 2023. Thank you, as always, for joining us here every single week for the Week in Review. This is our flagship show for the week, and we're halfway through April, firmly behind, or really in front of WrestleMania, depending on how you look at it, and we are only a couple of weeks away from Backlash. It seems as if it is officially called Backlash, which is a good thing, right? I don't think we need to hear about WrestleMania Backlash anymore, and it is just plain old Backlash, and the card's filling up pretty well. And this week we got a few more matches added to it, at least confirmed. And we also have some title matches next week, including the women's tag team titles, who are going to be defended against Sonya Deville and Chelsea Green. A segment on SmackDown that, I got to say, was really obnoxious for Raquel and Liv. I don't think that did them any favors if you're trying to push them as baby faces, and that seems to be the plan. But I thought it felt like kind of a celebration of sorts, and it was obnoxious, and I don't know. I'm trying not to start off on a negative note, but that one really stuck out to me on SmackDown. And we also got Solo Sikoa saying some words on SmackDown, which I think was impactful, because guess what? When you say less, when you do speak, it means more, right? Especially in Solo Sikoa's case. And in this case, he just told Paul Heyman, tell the tribal chief I got this. That's all he said. But when he speaks, even the Usos were like, they didn't even know what to do. We also got a very, very telling segment with Paul Heyman and the Usos on SmackDown right before their match, or rather before Solo Sikoa's match, where Paul Heyman said that the tribal chief is running out of patience with the two of you. He's pointing to Kevin and Sami, but looking at the Usos. So that, while it was not a super subtle hint, was subtle enough to say, hey, Roman is actually getting super tired of you guys. You lost the belts. Roman hasn't even addressed that lately or ever yet. And the Usos do have a tag team title match in 2 weeks. It's the night before, I think, Corpus Christi, Texas. I don't know how I remember that. But it is the night before, or rather the week before Backlash. And that, to me, would be the breaking point for Roman, where the Usos are clearly going to lose that match. There's so many reasons why the Usos are not going to win that match. That to me is the breaking point for Roman to really start to lash out at Jay and Jimmy and finally address the elephant in the room that he has yet to address, of the Usos losing the tag team titles. And that, I think, is going to be very telling. It's also clear, I think, at this point that Roman Reigns is not going to be competing on Backlash. I think if you've been paying attention over the last couple of years, after WrestleMania, Roman seems to take a month off. And he does that throughout the year, too, where he just takes a pay-per-view or 2 or 3 or 4 pay-per-views off. And it's his schedule. And, God bless him. Good for him. But that means that this time around, as per normal, we are not going to have a Roman Reigns title match on the pay-per-view. Doesn't mean he can't show up, but there's no title match that is even talked. It's not even discussed. There's no real opponent right now. And that does mean, though, that the next event that Roman's going to defend his title at, which is in 6 weeks, I want to say 6 weeks, on his 1,000th day as champion, Roman Reigns will face, well, we don't know. I would imagine Randy Orton, if he's scheduled to come back. If he's not, it could be a rematch of Sami Zayn or Cody Rhodes. If Cody Rhodes gets past Brock Lesnar and it's just kind of a one-off pay-per-view thing with Brock and Cody, it's probably most likely it's one of those three. It's either Cody, Sami, or Randy, and it's going to be celebrated on his 1,000th day. And if you think there is any chance of Roman losing on his 1,000th day, you are absolutely mistaken, and it's going to take place in Saudi Arabia. So that means that we have 6 more weeks guaranteed of Roman being champion. And this is one of the criticisms that myself and Anthony DeMarco have brought up and others is, hey, Roman has had a long reign and it's been historic, no question. But when you add artificially these really massive chunks of time in wrestling world where Roman doesn't appear, doesn't compete, is not there, blah, 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 then it takes away a little bit of his reign, a little bit, only because he has these massive gaps of time of defending and showing up. So when you know that he's not going to be at Backlash, you just automatically go to the next event, which is at the end of May. And there you go. Boom. So you already know right there. And that's been the problem with his reign the whole time. Not just with the artificial numbers being added to his reign, where most champions wouldn't take this amount of time off. It really takes the steam out of the interest out of wondering when he's going to lose the belt, because you just look at the next pay-per-view, because that's the only time he has any chance of losing it. And so that means that, again, you're adding already 6 weeks from this moment I'm talking to his title reign. And I mean, that's like, 50 days or some, and change or whatever. So that's also been part of the problem. Like, we constantly have to look out largely, really far out in the future. And it's just kind of takes the real interest or anything could happen type of narrative out of the equation. And you look at that event. And then after that, I would imagine you look at the O2 Arena for Money in the Bank. And who knows at that point. And then, of course, SummerSlam, August 6th. It's super early again this year. It feels like it should be like August 25th every year. And when it's August 6th, it's kind of screws me up. Was it July last year too? It was bizarrely early. That said, that's just it's a criticism, but a fair one of Roman Reigns' title reign. Now, again, we are coming up at 1,000 days. If you listen to me and for any length of time, you knew that, I mean, I have been on that bandwagon for the last 400 or more of his title reign of, hey, he's going to make it to 1,000. There is nothing that will stop WWE from getting there. There's too many things to talk about. There's too many documentaries to make. There's too many stories to tell for Roman to not get to that 1,000. And here we are looking at 1,000 days straight in the face in 6 weeks. So, all right. Well, before we continue, I want to invite you, if you haven't listened to us before, to head on over to patreon.com/WWE podcast if you want to join us there for ad-free. And it may be a good time to do so, because over the next several weeks, I'm going to be ramping up some of the ad spots in the shows. And certainly they're inconvenient for the free folks. But if you want to join us on Patreon, good time, or Apple Podcasts, guys. Apple Podcasts offers you an ad-free experience, $2.99 a month, 1 week free, or $29.99 for the entire year, which gives you 2 months totally free, which means dozens of episodes for free during the year. And again, yeah, there may be more ads coming in the next several weeks. And hey, man's got to eat, right? So, all right, let's dive back into this week. There's really a lot went on. I'm going to dive into Xavier Woods and LA Knight. This program's been building for several weeks. It's been based off of Xavier playing video games, and also LA Knight and Xavier Woods have been escalating it on social media, which is kind of weird, but not really given the time we're in, right? It's not that big of a deal. It's just interesting to see them putting in promos that they did on social media. However, I like this program mainly because it's LA Knight getting something important-ish to do, given he wasn't on WrestleMania, doesn't get a whole lot of mic time. And you listen to the crowd reaction. I tweeted this out and said basically it's amazing how over LA Knight is, given that WWE gives him next to no mic time, has had him win one match out of the last 3 months, didn't give him a WrestleMania spot, and yet he's still getting this reaction. Imagine when WWE actually decides to push this guy. I think that's going to be massive, and I'm all for letting him simmer, allowing those that are undecided about LA Knight to make a decision. But the reaction for LA Knight is just great, and the guy's just got a magnetization to him, if that's a word, that just draws you in. So back to this program. I'm trying to stay on task. Back to this program. Again, I'm cool with it. This matchup that they had this past week on SmackDown was good, really good. And as much as I dislike Xavier Woods, who is stuck in a some kind of time loop where he doesn't evolve his character at all, ever, he is still really good in the ring. I have no problems with Xavier Woods in the ring. He is an amazing athlete. He is better than I think people remember him to be because his character is so goofy and ridiculous and childish that when you put him in the ring, you're like, oh yeah, that's right. He can really wrestle because he doesn't get a lot of time in matches, solo especially. And it's just good to see also Xavier get some time. And hell, maybe hell will freeze over and Xavier will have some kind of character change and the New Day kind of just dissolves quietly. Nobody feuds with one another and Xavier has a nice solo career. I'm all for that too. And this match with LA Knight was really good. Now, we have a heel who tried to pull the tights to win. And then you had to have Xavier use backwoods, which is essentially just a roll-up. And also use the tights, but the referee didn't see it to get the 3 count. Now, you may say, well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Tit for tat. Use your strange analogy as you will. The fact is that babyface still cheated to win. I mean, that's just the fact, right? And we've seen this kind of finish before. But we're all supposed to cheer because Xavier got away with it and LA Knight didn't. So, I don't know. I mean, people just for whatever reason have a Pavlovian response to Xavier Woods and his music and all that, his trombone that he's been honking for 6 years. And Xavier gets the victory. Again, LA Knight loses. It's ridiculous. And LA Knight, at this point, you don't expect him to win any matches, which is kind of sad. And LA Knight's really good in the ring too. But, I'm excited at least that Xavier Woods, from an in-ring perspective, is getting time to work because he is really good. More interestingly, backstage, though, after this occurred, we had Xavier Woods interrupting Imperium using his trombone a couple of times, and that got the attention of Gunther. And Gunther called him a goof, it's exactly what he is. These two couldn't be more polar opposites. You have one, and it's hilarious that the one that's the goof, not taking anything seriously, who just cheated to win his match, is being positioned as the babyface, and the one that is all about respect, doesn't cheat to win, even though he has a backup, is the one who's billed as the heel. Is this not a very strange time? And is it what? Because he has a mean face, or because he has smug looking backup in Giovanni Vinci? I mean, and Ludwig Kaiser, like what? I don't know. I still am trying to figure out the logic. Is because his entrance isn't super flashy, and his song you can't sing along to in this kind of, if you can sing along to your song, we're turning you babyface era. You ever know that? You notice that too? Is that the reason? Very, very bad reason to keep him heel. But I mean, he's still thriving. I mean, Gunther is a face of SmackDown, and I hope he doesn't go anywhere with the draft. Nor do I hope Imperium goes anywhere. I hope it's the whole group going as a unit, either staying or going. And what I think is going to come out of this now next week, we're going to get an Intercontinental Championship match with Xavier and Gunther, right? And I'm sure it's going to be a fun match. Great. I think it's going to be a good time, right? Ultimately, there is zero chance of Xavier winning. And Xavier did say, hey, I haven't even got a shot at this championship. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, if you stop tooting your horn and making inside jokes and playing video games, maybe focusing on your career would be a good option if you're after a singles championship. Nonetheless, we are going to get that match. It should be a very good match. But I think ultimately what's going to come of this, of course, Gunther wins. But we'll have a nice showing from Xavier, have some nice near believable falls. And then I think after he loses, the beatdown is going to commence. And it may lead to Kofi coming back to help Xavier. I'm not sure if Kofi's ready, but I would think that he is. Because if Xavier's going to go against Imperium, well, how many members of the New Day are there? Well, we have Xavier. We have presumably a returning Kofi, and maybe a returning Big E, who I think is going to challenge Gunther either at Backlash or in the Saudi event, or maybe even further down the line. But this is all leading to of course, a Kofi return, which will get a nice pop. But more importantly, a Big E versus Gunther matchup for that Intercontinental Championship at a major event. Again, it could be as soon as Backlash, it could be in Saudi, or it could be at Money in the Bank. I'm not sure exactly. But that's my hunch. Because we could see New Day versus Imperium very, very soon. I think this is just the beginning of it. This is the catalyst that's going to start this program for months to come. So, and do I think a Big E is eventually going to take the belt off of Gunther? God, I hope not. I hope not. But I could see in a returning fashion, and when people return, they got all the momentum behind them usually, and I'm a little nervous that Big E, upon his return, could take the belt off of Gunther. I'm a little nervous there. So, something to watch, nonetheless. I mean, I've projected about 4 steps ahead, but that's my thought. All right, another really good match, Santos Escobar versus Damian Priest. I really like this one. This was more fun than I ever expected it to be, and it's also putting Damian in a position that he hasn't been in a while, and that's in the position of relevancy, because he has taken a backseat to every other member of the Judgment Day for so long that you wonder if they were ever going to do anything with him, because we have one of the biggest heels in pro wrestling in Dominic Mysterio doing a brilliant job. We have a quasi babyface, we're really ready to be a babyface at any time in Rhea Ripley, but still positioned as heel because of her association with the Judgment Day. You have Finn Balor, who right now, he did not show up this week, but he's doing a good job as a heel. But we would imagine that after this program with Edge and the injury and all that, with the 14 staples in his head, maybe he's ready to go into a babyface program. I would say no, but the opportunity is also there. So Damian has been kind of the fourth wheel for a long time, especially in WrestleMania. He got nothing to do. Now he's got Bad Bunny, and he's got Bad Bunny to focus on. And we've got this past week on SmackDown, as I said, Santos Escobar versus Damian Priest. This was really good, as I said. I mean, way more action and near falls than I expected. Really good chemistry here. And it ended up with Priest getting the victory here, as expected, but not in a very respectable way. And that came in the form of Rhea Ripley grabbing Escobar's foot, and then Zelina Vega hit a Hurricane Rana on Ripley, which sent her into the barricade, and it looked like a bit of a rough spot. I don't know if Rhea actually hit her head or nearly hit her head, but we got a nice spot there. And Priest hit Escobar then with a kick, and then South of Heaven for the victory. So a distraction by Mommy allowed Damian to get the victory. And then we got Escobar being tossed to ringside, and they were about to put him through a table. And then Rey Mysterio's music hits, and he comes down, and he was going to hit Dom with a 619, but Priest saved Dominic. And just good stuff here. I really, really enjoyed this, and I thought this was it overperformed based on the storyline that WWE is pushing here. I think this was a very enjoyable match, just a nice pro wrestling match.
Hey guys, do you wish there was a way to get rid of all the ads you're hearing in this show? Then head on over to patreon.com/WWE podcast, and for just $1 a month, you can get all of the episodes you hear on this podcast ad-free. We also have exclusive video and other podcasts as you head up in tier. Of course, Patreon is just one option. You can also use the Apple Podcasts app directly to get ad-free everything for this show and get a 1-week free trial over at Apple Podcasts, or head over to our website, wwepodcast.com, and go VIP to get all of the shows you're hearing right now ad-free.
All right. Then after that, we got a visit by Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. They stood outside the ring, or inside the ring rather, and they had pyro on the stage, and Morgan said they were proud to be new champions, and Rodriguez said that they were happy to bring the hardware back to SmackDown. Rodriguez thanked Morgan. Well, I don't know what that... First of all, what is she... I know what Rodriguez is referring to. The belts are hardware. They're physical items. But you are the women's tag team champions, which means you can float between any brand. So are we supposed to bow to you, thank you, grovel to you because you brought a belt to a show that you're supposed to and allowed to anyway? Anyway, moving on. So Rodriguez thanked Morgan and spoke about using her as her own personal weapon. And Morgan said, sometimes incredible things happen when they are least expected. This was obnoxious. I mean, I'm sorry. They did not come off likable. Liv Morgan, especially, I think I'm finally off the Liv Morgan experiment train where give Liv a chance and Liv deserves to be champion. Well, she was champion. It didn't work out too well. I just think Liv Morgan, she's got a decent look. She's an attractive woman, but who the hell isn't in WWE? So that's just kind of like bare standards. But also, her voice is like nails on a chalkboard to me. She's got a very natural irritating voice, and I don't know how, that's just the way it is. Just when she speaks, I don't want to listen because the way that her voice sounds is not pleasant. And she also kind of leans into that as well, where her inflection and the way that she speaks, her cadence, everything, her volume, I don't know. Anybody else feel this way about Liv Morgan? Just her sound. But in the ring, honestly, she's kind of been a little sloppy lately. She hasn't had clean matches, and I think that she's got some work to do to catch up to the rest of the women. This is not a slam Liv Morgan deal. Look, think about where she was in the Riot Squad, getting squashed every single week, getting no mic time with Ruby Riott and Sarah Logan, who's now Valhalla. I mean, so we have to look at that. I understand it. This again, it's not a crap on Liv segment. She has talent. She is good in the ring, and I could do without as a whole. I think that anytime you have a female athlete in WWE who goes above and beyond trying to make themselves a little bit more sexualized than they need to be with their outfits. And look, hey, if you're a woman, you want to do that in WWE, go for it, right? You do what you want. But I think when you over-sexualize yourself with your outfits, and this goes for Charlotte Flair, this goes for everyone up and down the roster, it's unique to women because it's a fairly still dominated by it's a male-dominated sport and still a male-dominated audience. Therefore, if you over-sexualize yourself with your outfits or your poses or your entrance, I think that you're going to devalue yourself as a wrestler because as men, we are programmed biologically to be distracted by those things. Okay. And I think that was a massive problem in the Attitude Era and even the Ruthless Aggression Era with women, that they were over-sexualized, objectified. Not all matches. There were a few random programs going on here and there that were very interesting, that were non Playboy pillow fights or gravy bowl matches. Remember all those embarrassing things? And I love how far they've come. I do. They main evented WrestleMania, all of that, okay? So before I get people angry with me, I'm fighting for not sexualizing the women in WWE. And when I see outfits that kind of remind me of when the women used to be just completely oversaturated with just kind of a sexual overtone of women, which as a teenage boy, I didn't care, eh? But looking back, you realize how good it is now based on where you were then. And I think that their women are in a good place now. And anytime I see anything that kind of triggers me back to those times, I don't like it because that's not why I watch wrestling. If I'm looking for those things, I don't watch wrestling for it, right? We all know where and how to get those other things. So my point of a long spiel is that I think the outfits that Liv was wearing, even Raquel Rodriguez, it just, I don't know, it's a little distracting this week in a way that was just like, okay, we get it. You guys have nice bodies, right? There's a way to show yourself as a powerful person, but also keep it classy. And I think that for me, it was a little bit less on that side. So I don't know. I'll have all the haters come at me right now, but I'm not apologizing for what I said. So anyway, I think right now we have an okay matchup with Sonya Deville and Chelsea Green, who also wore a kind of a skin tight. I don't know what it was. It was like a spandex week of just like, I don't know. It shows every single curve, if you know what I mean. Okay. In ways that, I'll leave it there. It's a PG show. It shows more curves than it ought to. Okay. And I just don't think, even in Chelsea Green's case, where she's playing this kind of stereotypical quote unquote Karen that I guess that she's going for, and she plays it well. I think she does. I'm enjoying Chelsea Green more every week. There's this matchup here with Sonya and Chelsea versus Liv and Raquel is going to be fine. Ultimately, they are not going to be the ones to take the belts off of those two. I think you're still waiting in the wings for the two mysterious, Sonya, or rather Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler, who they won that WrestleMania, by the way. Don't forget, they won their match at WrestleMania in the women's showcase match for the tag teams, and they're nowhere to be found. And all of a sudden, we have two teams that have jumped the line to get into the women's tag team title match. And so I don't know where Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey are. I really have no clue. I don't know. But it'd be nice to have them back and maybe eventually face Lita and Becky. But now that they don't have the belt, who cares, right? All right. Let's see. We got, Cole hyping the return of Shinsuke Nakamura, which that was really cool. Seeing Shinsuke back is nice. I don't need Rick Boogs anymore doing what he did. It was fun for a little while, but seeing Shinsuke back in his full entrance, different look. He doesn't have the red latex on. Now it's this black. And I thought the black was going to symbolize a heel turn. A lot of times that will. Trish wore black before she did what she did to Becky on Raw. It happens in movies, TV shows. It's a symbolic, usually foreshadowing of things to come. But we got a decent match with Madcap Moss and Shinsuke. And we had Emma on the outside, who continues to somehow have an affection for Madcap that is very bizarre. And I think since Emma has gotten with Madcap, I don't know if Madcap has won a single match, and Emma has to be the embarrassed girlfriend at ringside every single time to watch her boyfriend lose in front of her. So kind of a, stroke of bad luck with Emma pairing up with Madcap. I don't know. But it was an okay match with Shinsuke obviously going to be getting the victory here. It made total sense. And Madcap trying to attack Shinsuke after the match. Shinsuke still leveled him. And then Madcap was left double embarrassed as Shinsuke was celebrating. So Madcap, I don't know what to make of him. He seemed to be on a roll for a little while after he left the Happy Corbin duo there, as making jokes all the time. And now he's on his own and with Emma, and I think he's a baby face, but he's kind of also neutral. I don't know. I don't know what to make of this. I don't know what to make of him. I don't know if this is going to be a longer term program with Shinsuke. I would think Madcap is probably a one and done for Shinsuke as he moves on to bigger and better things, but I could be wrong. Maybe a Madcap Moss heel turn's on the way. That'd be fun. And maybe it was a little bit of a hint this week, because Madcap, for the first time that I remember, tried to attack the winner of the match, somebody that beat him, and wasn't being a good sportsman about it, after the match. That's the first time I can remember that happening for Madcap anyway, where he wasn't a good sport about it and ended up trying to attack his opponent after the match was already over. So I don't know. We'll see. All right, let's move on. We got, let's see, Solo Sikoa versus Matt Riddle. Again, this was a good match. It ended in 10 minutes or almost 11 minutes. Sikoa getting the victory. Man, they are really pushing Solo Sikoa pretty heavy. Now, Solo Sikoa, unfortunately, does have a loss on his record, and that that one loss is Cody Rhodes. I believe it was the Monday Night Raw before WrestleMania a few weeks ago. So, boy, WrestleMania feels like longer than that, doesn't it? But we got a bit of a blemish on his record, so you can't say he's undefeated. But I would then kind of pick things back up and continue the streak of Solo not losing. I wouldn't have Solo lose maybe the rest of the year. I mean, like, I would have him on a tear. And he seems to be the most trusted confidant for Roman Reigns. He seems to be the guy that Roman is turning to. He's the guy that can be trusted, where Paul Heyman said one thing but pointed at another with the Usos on SmackDown was very telling. And Solo Sikoa is right now playing his part very well. When he speaks, you listen because he doesn't speak often. He's really good in the ring. I love the Samoan spike being brought back from Umaga. Also, I noticed, I don't know if anyone caught this too, when Paul Heyman was talking to the Usos and talking to Solo Sikoa in the back, Paul Heyman was talking about all the Samoans that he was going to let down, facing Matt Riddle. And he was talking about Sika, right? The Wild Samoans. He's talking about Rikishi. He's talking about Umaga, right? Just notably left off that list is The Rock, all right? That was done very purposefully. And I don't know, well, I do know that if they were going to bring The Rock back, you don't mention The Rock to keep him as far away from this story until necessary. So it's a super surprise and oh my God, here we go. You haven't mentioned me once, right? There's a lot of build for that eventual program. So that was just a very notable, glaring omission by Paul Heyman on SmackDown, mentioning the whole, the Samoan family and the Samoan legacy and dynasty that has been built in that family around pro wrestling. So just interesting note. I was sitting there wondering, I was like, is he going to mention The Rock right now? I mean, how can he not? And he didn't. So it was almost an addition by omission, if that makes sense. That's kind of how I looked at it. Also, a bit of a note here before I finish up the rest of the SmackDown thoughts. Drew McIntyre, if you look at his Twitter account, as of this recording right now, it's a Sunday night, he has blacked out his Twitter. What do I mean by that? He just blacked out his profile picture and he's gone dark. And the rumor has it over the last several weeks, probably more than that, because when we hear things as fans, usually when we hear things, by the time we do, they've actually been going on behind the scenes for many, many months or longer. And it's apparent that we have a very unhappy Drew McIntyre backstage. He's unhappy with his position. It's the two C's, apparently, cash and creative. And he has, I think some ground to stand on. I think Drew McIntyre has been a good soldier. He carried them through the pandemic era. He has had, I can't remember a bad Drew McIntyre match. He looks the part. He's really good on promos, all that. So apparently he's not happy. So could this lead to Drew going to another promotion, Ring of Honor, AEW? Sure. But do I ultimately think at the end of the day they're going to come to terms with Drew? Probably. But I don't know. It's just Drew has never done something like this to my knowledge, so he must be really unhappy. And if you're looking for him to leave the company and go to AEW, well, I think there's your evidence. So I don't know. We shall see. But speaking of The Rock, though, one more thing on him. Apparently, Now, I'm not predicting this. This is not from my own brain. I have banned myself from any more predictions about The Rock until it's just in my face and I can't ignore it anymore. But apparently The Rock has committed to WrestleMania 40. Apparently he has committed to it. What does that mean? Is it in writing of a commitment? Or is it just a gentleman's agreement? Is it just a text? I don't know. But from what I hear from reliable news sources, the big ones that we all know, apparently The Rock has committed to WrestleMania 40. So, if that was to happen, it's got to be against Roman Reigns. There's literally no other opponent. But does that mean that Roman is going to carry the belt to WrestleMania 40? Is that what this means? Let's hope not. I just, again, I'm such a anti-championship Rock Roman match. I want the match. I don't want the belt involved. And there's so many reasons for it. But I don't know. It's something to think about. Something to think about as we roll and start to think very, very vaguely about WrestleMania 40 and start to piece some matches together. You know, if I was to do this really early out, it'd be Rock Roman, no championship. I would have, who would I have? Edge versus John Cena in a final match, right? Both of them, it would be dubbed as their final match together. They go out together. Win, lose, or draw for both men, it's over. Those are two big matches right off the bat. In a Fantasyland, Stone Cold versus Brock Lesnar. That nearly happened this year, so don't laugh. That was a proposed match to Stone Cold this year. So it was a reality for a short time. So those are three matches right off the top of my head. You could do Gunther versus Randy Orton, or probably Riddle versus Orton. Gunther, I'm trying to think of a suitable opponent for him. I mean, I don't know. Gunther Rollins, there's something there too. I don't know. There's a lot to think about. For the championship, if Roman doesn't have the championship at WrestleMania 40, yeah, Gunther versus Rollins for the WWE Universal Undisputed Championship, sure. I don't know. We're going way, way, way out, guys. Way out. And I'd also have Becky Lynch versus Ronda Rousey 1-on-effing-1. Oy. That match still hasn't happened, and it's unbelievable. All right. I didn't mean to get WrestleMania 40 talk, but it's a nice round number that we can all think about as we move forward. So overall, I thought this was I did think this was a good episode of SmackDown. I thought it moved some things forward. It didn't take giant leaps, but I thought it was a nice, solid move forward. Matt Riddle continues to just do really well in the ring. On the microphone, he seems to be about the same. And then we also got an attack on Braun Strowman and Ricochet by the Viking Raiders. Left them laying. So that match is absolutely happening in the near future. I think next week. I believe there's like 3 matches next week. 2 title matches. And if I'm not mistaken, Ricochet and Braun Strowman versus the Viking Raiders. We have Gunther versus Xavier Woods for the Intercontinental Championship. And we also have the Women's Tag Team Championship match that I mentioned earlier with Sonya Deville and Chelsea Green versus Liv and Raquel Rodriguez. So, yeah, next week seems to be a pretty big edition of SmackDown. And hold on to your hats, right? So,
hey guys, do you wish there was a way to get rid of all the ads you're hearing in this show? Then head on over to patreon.com/WWE podcast. And for just $1 a month, you can get all of the episodes you hear on this podcast ad-free. We also have exclusive video and other podcasts as you head up in tier. Of course, Patreon is just one option. You can also use the Apple Podcasts app directly to get ad-free everything for this show and get a 1-week free trial over at Apple Podcasts, or head over to our website, wwepodcast.com, and go VIP to get all of the shows you're hearing right now ad-free.
Also, this narrative that the Bloodline's trying to push about Sammy turning on Kevin now, I don't want it to happen. Obviously, no one does. I think fans would actually just be totally deflated and not even care anymore because both men have turned on each other so many times. It's ridiculous. But it's encouraging that they won't do it because they keep bringing it up. That's encouraging to me. If this wasn't even being talked about and you saw hints of it, I'd be more worried than I am. I still have a slight sliver of a worry that somebody in there is gonna, put an idea out there, and it's gonna get in Triple H's ear, and it's gonna stick with him, and all of a sudden we're gonna have the 20th turn by one of these, and the 400th match that we don't need to see, even though they're really, really, really good together. But when they bring something up constantly, that's encouraging to me, because that means it's not going to happen. So, all right. So, but Kevin Owens and Sami really fun together. I would like them to actually have a unified championship belt. I don't like the look of the tag team championships. They look like KB toy belts. I'm sorry that I do not like the tag team championship belt look. I know some of you do. It's all personal preference. But even beyond the look of it, I think that you would want a singular championship, meaning a singular belt, because you have a singular championship, therefore a title belt that's also representative of one would be in line with what you're doing. Same goes with the WWE and Universal. I think one singular belt, and that apparently has been a rumor too, that they're going to go with one actual physical belt than keeping with the two, even though the two are a fun visual and it's a nice look and all the fireworks go off and everyone's holding up two belts. If it's one championship, then it's one title belt to me. So just a little bit of food for thought. Okay, moving on to Raw as I dive into that a little bit. As you know, I do a full Raw review, and I don't want to hammer home Raw too much here, but some of the highlights of Monday Night Raw are as follows. The big item coming out of that from Raw this past week was Becky Lynch getting turned on by Trish. So a Trish Stratus heel turn was headlined or co-headlined by the Bloodline storyline that continued to slowly evolve, and Matt Riddle getting himself involved. And also, I like WWE this past week showing us why Riddle is involved, bringing us back to December and showing us what Solo did to Riddle, which is why they had their match on SmackDown, by the way. So that was a very nice touch, something that's simple but made sense. And so this past week, we did get Kevin Owens versus Solo Sikoa, and I liked it because not only is it continuing to showcase Solo Sikoa in a big main event spot, same goes with Kevin, and bringing in the whole dynamic of Riddle is fun and it's new, and the whole 3-on-3. It's just a nice new pairing. Riddle is the new straw that's stirring the drink right now, and it's just fun. It's fun. It's Roman Reigns not being there on a weekly basis sometimes is a bit of a drag, but you know what? Even without Roman there, it still feels important, because it always feels like Roman's eyes are watching, doesn't it? And the wise man is only loyal to Roman and will betray anyone in the bloodline in a heartbeat, just to satisfy and to please his tribal chief. You can see that in his eyes. It's so much fun to watch. We also got, beyond the whole Solo Sikoa beating, by the way, he beat Kevin Owens, and so Solo continues, other than the Cody blemish, to be undefeated. Finn Balor beats Rey Mysterio after a coup de grace, and really good match here from what I remember, and it was not some good. It wasn't great mic work by Dominic this past week. He had some stumbling, and it wasn't his usual smooth on the mic self. It was a bit of a stumble night, and I don't hold anything against him. On the mic, you're live, you screw up, you can't go back. It is what it is. You stumble, you stutter, whatever. So he had a bit of an off night on the mic. It's fine, All right, the Women's Tag Team Championship match on Raw was Raquel, Liv, who beat Becky Lynch and Trish to win the Women's Tag Team titles, and Lita was mysteriously attacked backstage. We still don't know. By the way, we were told on SmackDown that Trish is going to explain her actions on Raw. We'll find out if Lita was attacked by Trish or another entity, right? I mean, maybe now that we knew Trish's heel turn and saw it coming, or we know what happened now, Perhaps Trish is the one that attacked Lita. And if so, is Lita versus Trish going to be a thing? We don't know. I mean, Becky Trish is definitely going to be a thing. But down the line, is Lita versus Trish going to be a thing? Boy, who knows? All right. So Bobby Lashley versus Bronson Reed ended in a double countout. They continue to push Bronson, and they continue to push him beyond just the typical squash match stuff that he's been doing. It's good they're getting him out of that. It's an important step, but you got to know when to move past that, and they seem to be doing that with Bobby Lashley and Bronson Reed getting a double countout. So that program will continue presumably this next week. The Usos defeated the Alpha Academy after hitting Chad Gable with a 1D. Io Sky beats Piper Niven and Michin in a triple threat match with a moonsault. And the interesting thing about this was Bayley was originally in it. Her group said, hey, wait a minute. What about us? You're always doing this. So Bayley said, fine. So Bayley swapped herself out for Io Sky. Io Sky wins. Now Bayley's going to have to pretend to be excited for Io. And you know what's going to happen. Heel turn, double down heel turns coming for Bayley, who's already a heel. But more importantly, a babyface turn for Io Sky is coming. And also, even more importantly, is the dissolution of the just very underwhelming Judgment Day Damage Control group that has been going on over the last several months. So very important things happening here. This to me is the dissolution of of Damage Control. All right. The other thing that happened, last thing that happened in my notes here on Raw, is Cody Rhodes challenging Brock Lesnar to a match at Backlash. And I remember tearing this down in my Raw review about the whole logic of why Brock did what he did. The announcers giving us a piece of why, and also having Cody give us a piece. So apparently the two pieces are, if you missed it on my Raw review, the announcers are saying, hey, it's because Brock was unhappy with his position on the card. To which I would say, okay, well, hasn't Brock been very vocal in the past about getting there early, performing early so he can get the hell out of there and go back home? So isn't that the best possible place for the card for him? And since when has Brock given a damn about where he is on the card? That's not consistent with Brock's character at all. Okay, number one. Number two, the logic of Cody saying, well, I'm a catalyst for change, and Brock didn't like that. That was essentially what he said. What? What does Brock care? Brock cares about getting a paycheck and kicking ass and getting the hell out of there. So why does Brock care about change suddenly? And by the way, what has Cody done to change anything? What change has he implemented? Somebody tell me. None of this made any sense. And it was just having other people try to do the things that Brock probably can't do on the mic because Brock is just not good on the mic. He never has been. I've never been a fan of this happy yippee-ki-yay cowboy, farm boy, whatever version of Brock. I really haven't. I love the jumpsuit, serious, kick-ass Brock, and hopefully that's what we're getting back. And if that's what it is, great. But I think they're also trying to, mitigate some of the weaknesses or conceal some of the weaknesses of Brock Lesnar on the microphone, trying to explain why he did what he did by having the announcers and having Cody really speak for him without telling the audience that's what they're doing. So that's what I think is happening here. But even if that's the case, both excuses are very weak. Just don't make any sense from any kind of consistent character of who and what Brock Lesnar is at all. So anyway, that's what I thought. That's my thought on that. That's my thought for the week. I really appreciate everybody for listening. If you guys want to follow us, you can do that on Patreon at patreon.com/WWE Podcast. You can do that on Apple Podcasts or WWEpodcast.com. Go VIP. And also, if you guys want to give us a 5-star rating, please do that. If you hate our show, please give us a 1-star and tell us how awful we are. That really does help us too. But I'll be back tomorrow night with Anthony DeMarco as we talk about the current state of WWE, where things are, pick a specific topic, and really deep dive into it as we roll into Monday tomorrow. So thank you, everybody, for listening. I really appreciate it. Take care, and I'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.